Hey y'all, so we have the van back, super excited about that. For this week, what I thought I would do, I put a community post up a few weeks ago, I think it was 2 weeks ago, asking people for questions for a Q&A, so I thought I would answer those today. You guys sent some really great questions in, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use my computer because some of them have a lot of context, so I'm gonna read them to you and then I'm gonna give you my answer. All right, let's go. First question is coming in from my friend Erin Hillis. She wanted to get some tips on problem solving, like when you can't get equipment set up right, and then how to be outdoorsy when it's hot out there, and then how to not get lost when you're alone and have brain fog and a crippling lack of direction. So we're gonna take this piece by piece. I think first, speaking to the point about equipment not getting it set up correctly, number one, practice. That is like the biggest thing when it comes to camping gear. If something's new to you and it requires some like figuring out, try it out at home. Try it out at a campground near you, try it out at a park, try it out in a parking lot. Now, there are certain things that you can't do that with. You can't light a fire in the middle of a parking lot, but there are places that you can go that are near home that you can practice things. So rather than taking a long trip and going for a long weekend somewhere, 4 hours away, figure out if there's something close to home, 45 minutes, an hour away, and try out your stuff there if you can't try it out in your own backyard. Number two, I would say, is YouTube. If you're out at a campsite and you have Wi-Fi and you can't figure out how to get something to work, how to make something work, YouTube. It's the largest search engine on the internet. There's bound to be somebody out there that has the thing, that knows how to do that thing, and has shown you how to do it on YouTube. Number three, I would say, is if you've got outdoorsy friends, ask him to help you figure out how to put that thing together. If somebody were to be like, hey, I got a new tent and I can't figure out how to put this thing up, I would be there in like 3 minutes. That is like my favorite thing. I love doing it. It makes me tired, but I love doing it. So after tent camping for 2+ decades, tents are some of my favorite things to put up. So find an outdoorsy friend and ask them to help you figure it out before you take any long trips. For the second part, hello. For the second part, how to be outdoorsy when it's hot out. Don't watch my last video. Yes, I went camping in the heat. I know. Sometimes I like to test myself, test my limits, but also I was kind of going crazy being inside. Yeah. It is what it is. I would say figure out how to do outdoorsy things in the early morning or in the late afternoon. So if you like hiking, you like going for long walks, if you want to, go to the local park and do stuff, try to go in the early morning hours and the late afternoon hours when it's not as hot. I think is a really great thing. The other thing is look at places that have cooler climates, and if you can, plan a trip there. That's definitely something that I do during the summer especially, but also in the winter, because this is not a four-wheel drive van, so I have to be selective about where I go. So in the winter, if I want to recreate and play, I'm going to look for a good weekend or a good long weekend where I can go south, where it's going to be a little bit warmer and there's not as much of a likelihood of snow. So definitely figure out how you can work with the weather rather than have it work against you. And then as far as getting lost, and being outdoors when you don't have a great sense of direction and things like that, there are a few things that I do. I feel like before COVID, I had a great sense of direction, was always hiking, camping, doing all of this stuff solo. And now I rely heavily on things like paper maps. Pick one up whenever you go to a trailhead. I know, it's on your phone, you have an app. You just never know whether or not your phone is gonna glitch, it's gonna, lose power, it's gonna break, just whatever. Just take the paper map. Take it with you. And then the other thing is to frequent places that are nearby that you can get the lay of the land really well so that you don't get lost in places like that. There are certain places, even in Colorado, where, I've been hiking there 3 or 4 times and I still have not seen even the smallest part of it. So there are places where you can go over and over again and see different parts of it, see different things, experience different things, but you're still going to a familiar place. Once you've got those down, then I say, then you can start branching out and going to different places. The other thing, looking at my notes, is when you are in that place. I know it's hard because there's like a sense of panic of I'm lost, everything looks the same, I don't know where I'm going. Stop. Don't keep walking. Don't keep walking. Until you like have a moment, breathe, can say, okay, we're gonna get ourselves out of this and then we can start moving if it's safe to do so. Just stop walking and just breathe for a second. And then of course, the other thing is weather. There are so many reports of people who get stuck in, you know, weather patterns that cause them to get turned around and things like that. And they end up in really bad situations because of it. With that, I would say be prepared. For me personally, in my hiking pack, I have a compass. I've taken classes with REI that talk about like reading a compass, topographical mapping and all of that good stuff so that I can figure out with the paper map which direction do I need to go to get back where I need to go. And then the other thing that I would say if you're directionally challenged and have brain fog and all of the things that happen when you're out there, take a buddy if you can. That's definitely a plus, especially if you are with somebody that isn't directionally challenged. I have some friends that I hike with, or I used to hike with every once in a while, that just have an amazing sense of direction, and I loved going out with them because we could crisscross rivers, do all kinds of stuff, and we would always end up where we needed to be. So find friends that are good at this type of stuff and see if you can find a way to go out with them. And last but not least, if you're out in places where you know you might get lost and get turned around and it could turn into a bad situation, a GPS locator with an SOS button is not a bad thing. I have a Garmin InReach and I take it with me whenever I travel, but also whenever I go on walks, especially longer ones that are, you know, easy hikes and things like that. Do what you got to do to protect yourself and stay prepared. Question number 2 is from Here Comes the Sun Little Darlin'. Do you pack differently for long trips versus short camping trips? The short answer is I try not to. Part of the reason that I got the van was so that all of the things that I need for camping and recreating stays in the van. So I don't I don't pack differently for a long trip versus a short trip, except for water, food, the electronics that I take. If I'm going somewhere where there is no cell service or Wi-Fi, then there's no point in taking electronics. So I leave those at home and I just take the bare necessities. I also don't leave those things in the van because of heat. Now, the other thing I do, my clothing, seasonally, like I will have all of my summer and fall clothing in packing cubes and they stay up there. So if I go on a trip, I take the bag in the house, wash all of that stuff, and it stays in the van. So it goes back in the packing cubes and back in the van. I don't wear it at home. But when the cooler weather comes, I will take all of that summer stuff out and rotate in the cooler weather, you know, hoodies, jackets, that kind of thing, and those will stay in the van. So technically I kind of have van clothing and I have like home clothing. Food, of course, I'm gonna adjust that. If I'm going on a short trip, you don't need as much. I think the most that I can get in here is probably a week's worth into the fridge anyway. But I have food that also stays in the van. If I just want to take a quick day trip, I don't need to pack anything because there's food in the van. And then the other thing I would say that I do is gear. So right now, because of chronic fatigue and other symptoms, I don't do a lot of recreating like I used to, but I would love to get back to the place where I start rotating in things like my bike and my paddleboard and my snowshoes, you know, that kind of stuff. Now, my hiking boots and my walking shoes, I have a pair that stays in the van. But yeah, I think that's probably the only gear that I take right now. Would I love to take more? Absolutely. Question number 3 comes from Brenda5511. What piece of equipment or gear do you use that you didn't think you'd need, but that you can't live without now? I would say hands down, my fan. I have a Ryobi fan that I splurged on, and I thought, well, you know, Kiri, she can use it, especially if we go camping in warmer climates when we're in Houston and, you know, traveling down south, that kind of thing. And I didn't, in my mind, I was just like, you know, it's one of those ancillary things you kind of buy and you think, oh yeah, that's good, but I'm not going to use it a lot. I use it every time I go out. Every time. So thank you, Ryobi. I don't own anything else by you, but if I ever need any kind of tool, I will definitely think about buying that brand, because the fan has been so fantastic, so much so that I've thought about buying another one, because Kiri has finally gotten to the place where she's okay with the fan being pointed at her. So we're making progress. I'm going to cheat and actually list like at least probably one or two more things. So number 2, I would say, is my phone clamp. Seems really strange, but hear me out. So I'm the queen of, let me see if I can find this cheaper somewhere else. And I looked at different phone clamps, and all of the Sprinter forums were saying that this one particular phone clamp was the one that works for travel, for if you're going off-road, like all the things. And it's like, I don't remember how much it was, but it was not cheap. And I bought it, and honestly, I have zero regrets. I put my phone in there, and I know it's not going anywhere. With other phone clamps, I've watched them bounce and bob, and just in my other cars, and I've never had an issue with this one. I can go anywhere in this thing, and I know that it's not going to go anywhere. So 1000% also the phone clamp. And number 3, I would say, are the lights that I have in the van, not the ones that are built in, because I really dislike overhead lights. I forgot that when I got the van. I don't know why, but at home I use a lamp because I don't like the overhead light. So, you know, the little string lights, the twinkle lights, the Lucy light that I have, all of those things, game changers. I love them. I love them so much. And they're small things that make such a difference in your camping experience. And when you're out, just having like little lights that offer ambiance rather than having like a glaring light that is just like bam staring at you. So I would say those are the 3 things. And conversely, the thing that I don't use as much as I thought I would, probably because I'm not taking months-long trips in the van, my air fryer. I thought I would use that more. I use it all the time at home, but I have a little baby one and I rarely use it in the van. So I'm gonna have to try to remedy that. I'm going to interject here. I have set up an Amazon storefront, I guess is what it's called. It's a place where I have lists of all of my favorite camping gear, the things that I loved for tent camping, the things that I love for van camping, the things that I would buy if I were to just be getting into camping. So the essentials that you would need, all of that is there. I will leave a link in the description box below. If you want to check that out, feel free. As you know, with anybody that mentions Amazon on here, if you buy something, then I earn a small commission. But I wanted to share that with you because there's just some really cool gear out there. So yeah, wanted to make that available since people sometimes ask me about that. All right, let's go. Next question. Question number 4 comes from Cotter9751. Camping, how to light, tend, and cook over a fire. I've tried, but I don't understand the appeal. Maybe because I'm not doing it well. And the second part of the question, not specific to gear, where I am in my own journey between camping and van life, is there a way to get comfortable between booking a state park spot and finding dispersed camping? So I'll be honest and say I'm probably not the person to ask about cooking over a fire. I don't enjoy it. I don't. Mostly because it takes too long. So I don't plan it into my camping time. I think when I was in my 20s, I did, because it was fun. But even then, I would at most do like hobo packs where you do your protein, your vegetable, and your starch. You roll it up in foil and then you know, throw it in the fire. Those work really well. But as far as like throwing a grate over firewood or, you know, over charcoal or things like that, I don't enjoy that. So I don't do it very often. I do know that the key thing there is to make sure that your fire is hot enough in order to cook your food. Otherwise, it's just not going to do anything. It's going to sit there and you're going to be frustrated. So if you do try it and you decide that, you know, you want to tackle this thing, just make sure that your fire is hot. If you are someone that loves like cooking over a fire, especially over a wood fire, chime in below with tips, because again, I'm not the person for that one. So sorry. Part 2 of your question had to do with lighting and tending a fire. I am good at that. So the next time I go camping, if I do a fire, I will try to make sure that I demonstrate what that looks like and put a video out. There are tons of them on the internet, by the way, so you don't have to wait for me to do it. I'm sure that there are some people, I can even make some recommendations on whose channel to look at that can teach you how to do and light a fire well. So, all right, guys on an e-bike. But you want, number one, dry wood. That is the most important thing. Number two, you want to have the 3 types of wood that you will need in order to get a good fire going. And that would be kindling, tinder, and then your logs. And then number 3 is you want to figure out some sort of structure that you're able to build your logs with so that you have airflow at the bottom. So, you know, we've all watched Backdraft and the other, you know, firefighter type movies where they tell you that oxygen feeds fire. So it needs to have oxygen at the bottom so that you're able to keep that fire going. I personally like the TP. Some people like the grid. You know, just figure out what works for you and what's easiest and do that, like what works. For the 3 types of fire, for kindling, I almost said kinder. For kindling, you want to use things like pine needles and small shavings of wood, things that light easy, small like thin strips of wood, that kind of stuff. For tinder, the size of your finger, wood the size of your finger is what I've been told generally you should be looking for. And then of course your logs that you either purchase or bring in with you. And then the other thing that I've found to be really easy, I bring fire starter. I have 3 different types. So one of the ones that I've found is really great, and there are so many different ways that people do this, is the ones that you make at home. So there's like the lint from your dryer and melted crayons. I have cotton balls in Vaseline, like that's actually in my day pack whenever I go hiking. And then, you know, people just do all kinds of stuff. So figure out something that works for you and make sure that you have those on hand whenever you're wanting to do a fire. And then as far as making the jump from camp, like state park camping, to dispersed camping, I hear you because I am right there with you. I've done some dispersed camping, but it was all SUV camping. I've never done it in the van. We just got the van, so we're gonna take a few trips and get that under our belt really soon. But I would say that for me personally, what's worked is following people on social media that camp the way that I want to camp. So there are people that I follow who give you tips about where to go, what to take, what not to take, what works, what doesn't, how to get there, all of that stuff. Find those people, follow them. One of my favorites for Colorado specifically is Nelson. His handle is Fat Black and Getting It, I think, on Instagram. I'll put it down here so that if you want to go check him out, you can. But yeah, he gives really great tips. He camps out of his Bronco in a tent and like wants to make the outdoors accessible to everyone. Like I said, love his channel. So he's one of the people that I follow because when I'm in Colorado, there are places that he goes that I want to go, and he gives me ideas of how to get there and get there safely. Number 2, if you have people in your life that disperse camp, talk to them. Get tips about where to go. I've done that. There are some people I reached out to and I was like, hey, I'm planning to do this trip. Like, what's along the way that you've really enjoyed? And they've given me places to stay. And then number 3, I would say, and this is interesting because I just started doing this, use ChatGPT. Like if you are wanting to go to a specific place, ask ChatGPT to give you dispersed camping places along the way, like on public lands and things like that, that you can stay. I did that recently because I want to take a trip this fall, and it was beautiful. Within seconds, I had an itinerary that told me the different places I could disperse camp that would give me Wi-Fi so I'd be able to work along the way. Like, use resources like that. And then of course, cross-reference. Don't believe ChatGPT with everything. Still go to places like Campendium, The Dirt, you know, all of the apps that are out there boondocking, and check those places out. Yeah, so that's how I'm gonna make that leap anyway. Question number 5 from Healing Me Nomad. If you didn't have to take anything into consideration, what destination trip would you plan? So the dream of my 30s and 40s was to take a year and spend 1 month in 12 countries that I've never been to. So that was the rule. I couldn't go anywhere that I'd already been. I had to go somewhere new. And I think if I'm allowed to cheat and not just pick one place, that is what I would do. It's still something that I very much I would love to do. Flying is a bit of an issue for me right now. I don't do it well, thanks COVID. But I think if I didn't have to consider anything, that's what I would do. Just because there are so many people all around the world, friends of friends, family, like all these people that live in countries that I would love to go to, and not just see the touristy bits, but go to really spend time with families, hang out, experience the culture, go see the sights, yeah, but also like I want to see what the locals do. What do y'all do? Like that was always one of my favorite parts of traveling in my 20s and 30s, was finding local people and figuring out like, where's your watering hole? Like where do you go to swim? Because I know you're not out here swimming with, you know, the foreigners that come through. Where are you going? And they'd be like, I'll take you. So I love that kind of travel. I would do that. Yeah, that would be my thing. And I know somebody's gonna ask me the 12 countries. I have a list of like 30 that I can't find right now. So from memory, they are, because I wrote them down: Ghana, Nigeria, Kenya, New Zealand, Spain, the Netherlands, Switzerland, Malaysia, India, Venezuela, Chile, and Argentina. So that's my 12 if I don't go back to some place that I've already been. If I can go back to some place I've already been, I'd love to revisit some places, but that's my 12. And if I can only pick one place, I would say Spain, because I would love to do the Camino de Santiago. I have a friend that did it and talked about what a transformative experience it was. And if you don't know what that is, basically it's a pilgrimage voyage. You like walk across Spain. I think there are 2 or 3 other countries that have this thing where as you're on this path that's really well marked, there are people and places that take you in that you're able to stay, and they host you and all of that good stuff. And it's just a very, very cool experience. And she talked about it being just an amazing thing. I would love to do that. Question number 6 comes from Inspired to Wander, my friend Nancy. Before your YouTube life, what kind of travel did you enjoy the most? In one of your videos, you mentioned visiting other countries. What prompted you? How did you accomplish this? And did you do any camping when you traveled out of country? So my introduction to international travel was when I was 12. My parents put me on an airplane by myself and sent me to the Caribbean for the summer. So I was down there for 3 months, away from my family for the first time. Thanks, Mom and Dad. I blame you, by the way, for my love of travel, the fact that I am as independent as I am, and the fact that I do this. Like, this is your fault. Just saying. Apart from that, I traveled quite a bit with my sister. She is 15 years older than I am. So when I was a teenager, early 20s, college, she was well established in her career and was traveling for work. She traveled for fun, and she was kind and generous enough to take me along. So that was how I got to see some of the places that I've been. I also started doing this thing where every 5 years I tried to go to a new country, like somewhere I've never been. And so she jumped on board for that as well. And I got to see several countries with her. And then apart from that, in my mid to late 20s, or was I already 30? I may have, no, mid to late 20s and 30s, early 30s. I was a missionary, so I got to travel and I lived abroad. I did some really cool stuff with some nonprofits abroad, and got to travel from the places that I would visit because I met people from all over the world. So if I ever talk about people that I know in random countries, it's because of that, but also like my graduate studies and things like that. They're like, I know people that live all over the place, and I have no qualms about being like, hey, so I know we haven't talked in like 5 years, but I'm coming through your country and would love to hang out. And 9 times out of 10, they say yes. So that also is how I do some of my international travel. So the second part of your question, did I go camping when I was out of country? Yes. There were certain places that I did go camping. Mostly when I lived in South Africa, I went 2 or 3 times while I was there. I was super busy and doing other things, so I didn't get a lot of opportunities, but I did get a chance to take some inner city Joburg kids camping. So that was really cool. And then also went camping with friends. But for the most part, the other travel that I did was just a different type of travel. So It really depended on who I was with. If I was traveling with my sister, there's no way. My she's not camping. She's not doing it. She's not. She's very much a hotel, like all of the amenities person. So there was one time we were traveling to Europe and I tried to get her to stay in a hostel. Airbnb. So, yeah, if I was traveling with her, then absolutely not. But also, you know, when I was leading trips and doing, you know, missions things, then I was staying with host families or staying in churches and things like that. So not a lot of opportunity to camp. So number 7 is a question that I get, especially from people that know me well, who have been in the process with me for quite some time. As I've said on this channel, it took like 8 years for me to make this decision. And that's, do I regret getting this particular van? And the answer to that, generally no. I made the best decision that I could with the information that I had. I bought a van that was in my budget, that I knew that I could maintain. And I decided when I got the van that I was not going to live in a space of regret where it was concerned. So I would say no, I don't regret it. However, there are times when it does something weird, when it glitches, when, you know, something happens, and I do think, you know, is this because of mistreatment from the previous owner? Is it something, you know, is this why they got rid of the van? And so I do have that moment of like, I wish I'd gotten a new van, but I couldn't afford a new van. They were like $60,000 and I did not have that kind of money. The other question is, do I regret not getting the 4-wheel drive? Again, sometimes, but I also still believe that I made the best decision with the information that I had, and I bought what was within my budget. There are some places that I know that I won't be able to get to. There are times when I am somewhere and I'm like, time for me to go because the weather has turned, and I know that the likelihood of me getting stuck is pretty high. There are places that I will not camp. Just because I don't want to be in a position of having to pull out my recovery boards and ask for help to get out. I don't. I feel like that is an added layer of stress. And so in those moments when I want to go do that kind of stuff, I do wish that I had the 4-wheel drive, but I love my van and I am hoping that I get 15 good years of travel out of it. I know that the diesels last longer, but I'm going to take good care of this so that it lasts as long as possible too. So with that, that's the end of my questions. If you have questions, please drop them in the comments below. If I get enough of them, I'll do a part 2. But yeah, until then, take good care. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.